a lot of people don't know this too, though. Like 80% of a young person's time is actually spent outside of school.
Mhm.
Like we always talk about how important like school and education is, right? And going to school, which is extremely important. But a majority of young person's time, they're not even in school, right? So like, what is happening over the summer? What's happening after school? What's happening late night and what's happening early in the morning? Are, from everything from are they being fed? What are they engaging in? What are they learning from? What are they learning about? And what are they doing to kind of better themselves and their community?
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network on ESPN Richmond 106.1 and Choice 105.3. Welcome to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1 FM, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. I'm Will Melton, your host, and today on the program we have Traymanesha Lamy from NextUp, RVA. She is the CEO and president there, and we've got a lot to talk about with regard to youth here in the region. But before we get started, if you're new to this program, please visit americashealthiestcity.com to learn about our 10-year community partnership to make the entire region of RVA the healthiest in America by 2033. It will take all of us working together, moving the needle in the same direction at the same time to get there, and everybody has something to contribute. So check out our ideas board, find out more about our ambassador program, and leave your comments behind so that we can see what your ideas are as well. Without further ado, Traymanesha, I hope I got your name right. Thank you for joining me here on the program today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you to all the listeners that are joining us as well.
Well, I love to learn more about our guests, and our listeners love to know whether folks are sort of native to the area or if they have moved here at some point. And so I'll give you the opportunity to share a little bit about what brought you to Richmond.
Well, I'm actually from New Jersey. Once I get to talking, you'll hear the accent, as people say. I have a lot of the Jersey slang in my accent. But I'm from Newark, New Jersey, and I've been in Richmond, Petersburg area now for about 3.5 years. I currently live in Petersburg, and I work at Richmond.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what was it that brought you here to the Richmond Petersburg area?
You know what? During the pandemic, I had to kind of reset and level set a little bit. I have 3 small kids. They're 3, 4, and 5. And, I wanted to be closer to family. So I came to Richmond, and then I just ended up staying down in this area. I really am passionate about youth development, which kind of really drove me into the space with NextUp.
So you and I met at the inner city visit in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and connections with lots of leaders here in the region. I was excited to talk to you, as we know there have been some challenges in the community, and certainly recently some challenges with youth violence. We know that there are some remedies to those problems, and we know we need to act fast. So I enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to our conversation today. Maybe just kind of continuing with your background, you can share a little bit about what motivated your interest in the area of youth development, and how you arrived at NextUp.
Wow. I've actually been doing youth development now for like 20 years. I started off as like a college mentor myself, and then just went into various different levels of the field, really like mentoring young people, tutoring young people, and engaging in programs myself. I think one of the things that stood out for me was actually when I was in middle school, we had like the peer leadership program, we had the Gear Up program, and all of a sudden, like that, the programs were gone because of funding. And, you then had to kind of like try to search and find out where to go. And at that time, when I was growing up too, one of the things that I noticed a lot in sports, I was really active in like basketball. I can't play for the record, but I was active in basketball. I went on to play like softball. I was a cheerleader for like 9 years. But at the beginning of the year, you had all these kids try out for the team. And then you had the folks that were selected for the team. And then it came time to do things like buy uniforms. And then all of a sudden, so many people kind of could no longer afford to be on the team. And I think that was like the first exposure I had as far as like the limitations of access, to after school and summer programs, and how important and significant it was. it helped to shape me to where I am today. I started off actually in my church. There was a mentoring program, and my mentor took me to work with her. And she worked for one of the largest community development organizations in the country at the time, and they had a youth program. And so I got to work in that youth program, and I literally just never left. So like I've always been really, really gravitated just to work with other young people and learning from their stories, because I think that they have a story to tell. A lot of times, it's told for them and it's told about them, but no one's really talking directly to them and understanding what's going on. And so I really enjoy just kind of just all of the young people that I've kind of met throughout the years have helped to get me to this point. And that's why I do the work, just the youth. I love youth. I'm passionate about young people.
Well, just a small story about me. When I was in middle school, I also had the opportunity to participate in a peer mentorship program. And coming from a house of modest, resources, it was one of the things that I could do that the school paid for, and I didn't have to worry about. And thinking back on it, I mean, it definitely shaped who I was then and who I became. And, it's a formative time in people's lives, and it's a tough time in people's lives too. You could speak more to that certainly, but let's talk a little bit about solutions, because it's all about funding at the end of the day. How do we make sure that these programs stay in place? How do we make sure that we can increase access to programs? So you moved to Richmond 3 years ago. Where did you start out when you moved here?
When I started out, I came here, and I came during a time where there wasn't that many houses, so I could not find a house in Richmond. So I ended up moving and staying, and now I currently live in Petersburg, and I commute into Richmond. But my mom was here for about 10 years, and she's from Virginia. So when I first came down, I kind of just stayed with her to kind of, learn the lay of the land and kind of also adjust with the family and the kiddos. And I think too, Richmond stood out for me in a lot of ways because it was really similar to Newark. The program I was running in Newark was an out of school time intermediary network too. And I actually launched that organization from the ground up. And I was running like a STEM, we call it like a STEM ecosystem as well, which is like cross sector partnerships with like the city and the school district and higher education and, and K through 12. So everyone was at the table really talking about how do we create these pathways from pre-K to career for young people. And that's really what the need is. Like the need is to make sure that we have clear, defined pathways from pre-K to career for young people. And it really shouldn't matter whether or not they want to go into the military, or whether they want to go and pursue a trade, or whether they want to become an entrepreneur, or whether they want to go to college. They should be able, and they should have all the resources and the tools to kind of be able to pursue their dreams. But right now, because there's a lack of exposure, there's a lack of access, they're not really able to fully tap into their gifts and their talents, as well as explore the various opportunities that exist out there for them. A lot of people don't know this too, though. Like 80% of a young person's time is actually spent outside of school. Like we always talk about how important like school and education is, right? And going to school, which is extremely important. But a majority of young person's time, they're not even in school, right? So like, what is happening over the summer? What's happening after school? What's happening late night, and what's happening early in the morning? From everything from, are they being fed? What are they engaging in? What are they learning from? What are they learning about? And what are they doing to kind of better themselves and their community? So that's where the work that I do kind of fit within that out of school time space. And my goal is to kind of make sure that we have like a holistic approach to youth development. So kids, whether they're in school or out of school, we're wrapping our arms around them wherever they are.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when I come back, we will talk more about NextUp and how you're going to work to continue to shape things there with your experience and all. So 1 second here.
Thank you for listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network.
Welcome back. We are in the studio here at ESPN with Traymanesha, Lamy from NextUp, and we're talking about interventions for youth when they're out of school, looking for opportunities to connect to one another, connect ideas, future pathways for careers, and so much more. So let's dive into NextUp. let's tell us the listeners who might not know who NextUp is, just a little bit about the background and what you guys are doing today.
Okay, so our mission is really to increase access to quality after school and summer programs and to make sure that youth and families know where those programs are. In addition to making sure that they are accessible, we also want to make sure that we support those programs and offer capacity building support so they can kind of understand the field of youth development, which is still really being explored, right? Like, so there's a lot of things that we know we do and we do well, and some people just gravitate towards young people, so they're great mentors. But there's actually a field of expertise that goes along with it too, like things like social emotional learning, and and how to actively engage young people within educational spaces, and exploring like STEAM and bringing it to life. So there's a lot of pieces there that we provide capacity building support for, in addition to spreading the awareness about the programs that are out there. I like to say our work falls in like three bucket areas. Mm-hmm. So one is really around like the data management, evaluation, research. Like, so one of the first things we did was like really explore the landscape of Richmond. When you look at Richmond, where are their programs? Where are there gaps in programming? Who's being served? Who's not? Right. So NextUp provides all of that data, all of that research. Right. We also have like a citywide data management system. So young people that are engaged with it out of school time, we're able to kind of see how they're doing in those programs. We're also able to kind of track engagement and youth success. So like, are their grades improving in math and language arts? Are they actively participating in attending these programs? So we're able to do that within that data management systems bucket of work. And then I just spoke about the capacity building bucket of work, where we offer professional development. And we also offer a core model, which we're really well known for in our middle schools. And that core model under that capacity building piece is really expanding and tapping into after school programs within school settings. So currently we're operating that within 5 of the middle schools throughout the city of Richmond. And now we're really evolving our work. In addition to the capacity building we're building in the middle schools, we're looking at community centers across the city, and community settings across the city that actively engage youth, and making sure that youth are aware of where those facilities are and that there are programs that are operating there that are going to tap into their gifts and their talents. The third and final bucket is around policy and advocacy. So how do we make sure that that we're raising awareness about the importance of after school and the importance of summer programs, and that we're tackling what I call the boogeyman in in a city like Richmond, which is transportation. Because you can say, here are all the programs, but if folks can't get to them, are they really accessible, right? So, and so there's some challenges in policy and advocacy work that needs to be done there that we really focus on. So those are 3 things.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the numbers, because I understand that there's been a decent, significant amount of development in the programming space in the last 10 years, and I understand that there's also some data to suggest that we need to keep going with that. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about some of the outcomes that you guys have seen and why you continue to make investments in this space?
Yeah, so in around 2013, we had 16 programs documented that we worked with, and we were working in one school, right? Today, we have 131 organizations that are operating 135 programs across the city. So not only in the schools, but in community settings. And that's huge. That's huge growth and progress through the years. And now we're able to kind of be able to show that there are multiple opportunities for youth to kind of engage in out of school time space, which is great. We're also able, because of our partnership with the city of Richmond, we have a positive development fund where we're able to provide dollars for programs to operate and to increase their slots for youth to engage in. So we're really excited about this summer. $470,000 are going directly into the programs to make sure that youth have a place to go, a safe and accessible place to go, which is great. And we're going to be able to fund 40 organizations with those summer dollars. That's set aside from the work that we're going to be doing through the academic year. But we want to make sure this summer, youth are well taken care of.
I was just on the phone earlier today with Nicole Jones from the 9th District and from
Yes.
Art 180, and I see that she's one of the organizations that you guys are funding. So she was actually a previous guest on this show, and we know that they're doing very important work in the youth development space. So amongst 39 other organizations, so that's a big number.
Yes.
Big number. Tell us a little bit about what the vision is as you look to the future. Are we looking at doubling the number of programs? Are we looking at funding these programs to a greater degree? What's the gap that we have today when it comes to having enough seats for young people to participate in these programs?
That's a great question. I think the size of 130 programs, 135 programs is really, really amazing, right, to have. When I was in Jersey, we had 254 programs. And we had slots for 24,000 young people, right? So when you think about the number of programs and how many young people you can serve, you can easily say, well, if you double that, could you imagine how many youth can be actively engaged with it out of school time, right? So I think that we definitely do want to think through how do we increase not necessarily the program, but the number of slots that are available and accessible for youth, right? So if we can go really, really hard on increasing quality programming to make sure that the programs have a safe place to operate, whether it's in a community setting or whether it's in the school or whether it's a community-based grassroots organization right down the street from your house. Are there safe places throughout the community where young people can go? That's number one. And I think the second thing that we want to make sure is that we're serving youth to the fullest extent of our capacity. So are the rec centers and facilities filled? Are the community centers filled? How do we make sure that those things are happening? I think is really, really important, first and foremost.
So you mentioned, do the programs exist? And so certainly we know the programs exist. We know that the community centers exist. We know that the schools are there to serve the young people. But there's an awareness issue. And so you guys have something exciting that you just released. So do you want to talk a little bit about your locator?
Yes, I'm really excited. So we just released a soft launch of the program locator. It's a youth program locator where youth and families can kind of go online. You can check us out at nextuprva.org, or you can kind of pick up one of our palm cards that are going to be circulating the city, and we're really excited about that. And they can go online and they'll see a map and they'll be able to look through where they live in the community and identify programs based on their zip code or based on the type of programs they want to engage in. Do you want to go to a STEM program? You want to go to a mentoring program? You want to go to, a sports program? And they'll be able to select the programs that are the best fit for them. So we're really, really, really excited about that. The other thing that we're really sharing right now, in addition to the program locator, is that we have a citywide out-of-school time calendar. So where are the youth-centered events that are engaging families throughout the city over the summer? We want to make sure that it can be a family affair too. So there are spaces that are there, there are programs that are there that are one-off events. They're on that calendar. So if folks want to go, they can access them. The cool thing is a lot of those programs are free. And they're just really community events. So we want to make sure that folks have safe fun this summer.
Well, I took the moment to, before we started, to search my zip code in the locator, and I found a number of different programs and community centers that are walking distance from my home. So it's good to know that you can address some of the transportation issues just by giving people access to things that are close proximity to their home. So tell us a little bit about, where are we from a general perspective of need in the community? How do you guys get funded? How can people in the community who are interested in supporting what you do get involved in NextUp?
I would definitely say to check out our website, nextuprva.org, and they can learn more about the opportunities to get engaged and get involved. We're really excited about an upcoming event that we have. We have two. So one is we're calling it an OST Impact meeting and discussion in which we're bringing people together and we're going to talk about all the data that has been gathered and collected over the past 10 years around out of school time in the city of Richmond. And so that event is going to be July 9th. So folks can kind of definitely go online and check out our page. You'll get more information about that event there. The other cool thing is there's a national event called Lights on After School. That event takes place in October every year. Our goal, and you're the first ones to kind of hear this announcement, we're going to do a citywide Lights on After School event. We're looking for youth, we're looking for family members, we're looking for programs that kind of want to get engaged to kind of spread awareness about the importance of out of school time. And the cool thing about it is we know the week of Lights on After School is going to be the week of October 24th, but we don't know what the event is going to be because we want to engage the community and plan it with them.
Wow.
And so if folks want to be a part of that planning team, they can definitely email me, reach out to us, and learn more about that opportunity. We want to plan something that's going to be engaging to our entire community, and we want youth to be centered in it. So definitely, if you have a young person that wants to tap into their leadership skills and ability, come on, bring them down. We would love to connect with them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to shift our focus a little bit more toward the future of Richmond and our community health. So we'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network.
Welcome back to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. I'm your host, Will Melton, and today in the studio we have Traymanesha, Lamy from NextUp RVA, and it's just NextUp, not NextUp RVA, right?
Well, we tend to go by NextUp. So
okay, just NextUp. All right, cool. So if you are new to this program, please hop over to americashealthiestcity.com. Follow us on Instagram at America's Healthiest City, and catch full episodes on YouTube at America's Healthiest City as well. Today we're talking about youth development and out of school time, and what NextUp is doing to raise awareness, funds, and just generally collect data so that we understand better how all these things work. So you've been working in this space for quite a while, and you certainly have your ideas and opinions. We think a lot about community health from a perspective of the social determinants. So what are the things that are impeding people from growing, developing, generational wealth for their families and everything else? What are some thoughts that you might inject into our ideas board on americashealthiestcity.com to, maybe it's a small way that somebody can get involved, or maybe it's something that's much bigger that they might champion. What is an idea that we can inject?
One thing I like to say is you cannot talk about youth development aside from workforce development. They overlap, right? So we need to make sure that we're creating pathways from youth development into workforce development, regardless of what career path a young person chooses. Economic mobility is essential, especially for communities like Richmond, where there's a growing wealth gap, right? So we definitely need to take that seriously and make sure that we are tapping into the skills, the resources that exist within our young people by exposing them to experiences that they otherwise would not have, right? So making sure that there are quality after-school programs is and making sure that those programs create that pathway to get them to who they want to ultimately be is.
So earlier in the program, and not to bring up a tough subject, but we were talking about sort of the string of recent youth violence incidents that we've seen. We've lost some young people. People have lost family members. It's been really tragic. Quite simply put, does putting kids in after-school programs affect the data? Does it bring those numbers down?
I think it does. I think it does because one of the things that we were able to do is we were able to show where the positive development programs are and where the high crime areas are. And we were very intentional about making sure that there were programs in areas where there's high crime. So I think that is really important to make sure the programs are there. Before the recent string of killings of our young people, one of the things that we noticed was that there was a 75% reduction in youth homicides. And that was prior to this span of time. the thing that happened that we feel, and we're looking at the data still, because there were some recent deaths as well, but the first wave of 4 deaths that happened were between the Easter weekend and the week after spring break. And what's happening there? Well, actually, there's not that many programs operating, right? There's spring break. Some programs actually end the week before spring break. So there is a lot of time that is idle time within that space. So what we're proposing is that we really begin to support, acknowledge, and fund alternative spring break opportunities. Parks and Recreations has an alternative spring break program. Parks and Recreations also has a safe space. They're going to be extending their hours over the summer for open gyms, which is I would really encourage people to kind of definitely check that out, because a lot of the killings happen during either after our traditional out of school time hours, which is like the evening hours, 11 o'clock, or on the weekend, right? And so we need to make sure that we expand out of school time offerings so that we're creating more safe spaces, that we're creating alternative spring breaks when needed, and that we're creating like a summer gap programming for that week in between school ending and OST programs starting, or after school and summer programs starting. So I think that's kind of where we need to head right now, is kind of making sure that we're providing quality programming during that span of time where that peak hit.
Gotta fill the gaps. Gotta fill the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let folks know how they can get in touch with you and NextUp if they're curious to learn more.
Okay, so I am really open to having conversations about this work, because I feel like it does take a village to kind of really do this work thoughtfully. So you can email me directly at tlamy, TLAMY, at nextuprva.org, tlamy at nextuprva.org, or you can check out the website, nextuprva.org, and reach out to the team, reach out to us. If there is a program, if you're like, hey, I have a program and my program isn't on the program locator, there is a form on the website where folks can kind of go, they can fill out the form, and we will add your program to the program locator. If there is a summer event that you're hosting and it's centered on young people and you want on the calendar, there's also a form for that too. Our goal is to make sure that the space that we occupy with the city and with the school district, as well as our other OSC partners, is a collective space and a shared space. So we really just want to, engage everybody within this work, because it's going to take all of us to kind of better support you.
Yeah, well, this is an important topic, and again, one that I was having with somebody earlier today, that it will take all of us, and your work is very important in this space. So thank you for sharing your time today and the story behind NextUp. I think the community has a lot more to learn. I have a lot more to learn myself, and I can't wait to get more involved.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate you, and thank you for also allowing me to speak to your listeners today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. This was America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. You can catch us each week, Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. here on the network or on ESPNRichmond.com. Please visit americashealthiestcity.com to see how you can plug in.